Oh boy, it is more playoff preview time for the Los Angeles Rams as they head to Chicago to play in Soldier Field in the cold weather. How much is that going to affect this game? We're going to get into the full game preview of the Rams offense, Bears defense, vice versa, some key matchups, keys to the game, all of that. I'm going to also address a lot of arguments that I've seen Bears fans making about this Rams and Bears matchup, whether it be the cold weather argument, whether it be the familiarity. I'm going to be kind of addressing those and saying how much truth I believe there really is in some of those, because I think some of those don't really have a lot of weight as some Bears fans think. But of course, I'm going to do my best job to look with an unbiased view and preview this game. Let me know your unbiased view or biased view if you guys want in the comments below with your score prediction, players of the game, all of that. Okay, so we're going to start off with this Rams defense versus this exciting Bears offense. I have to admit, with my dad being a Bears fan, I've seen a lot of Bears football, and I'm just happy for him. I'm happy for Bears fans that the Bears are finally on the upward trajectory again and having probably one of the best offenses they've ever had in their history. So congrats to Bears fans. But speaking of Bears fans, before we get into their offense versus our defense, I want to start off with some of these arguments and narratives that I've seen that I don't really feel like hold a ton of weight, or some of them that maybe are getting a little bit too much credit. The first argument I want to address that I've seen a lot of Bears fans talk about is the familiarity that the Bears have with Matthew Stafford. I simply put just don't think that that is a very real thing. Last time Matthew Stafford played on the Lions and was able to play the Bears twice a year was all the way back in 2020. Since then, this whole Bears team, from the coaching staff to the players in general, has almost completely been turned over. I don't really think you can bring a familiarity aspect into this with Matthew Stafford. I think it's more so the fans have familiarity with playing Matthew Stafford than it is the Bears, so I don't think that argument has a lot of weight to it. Another argument that I've seen Bears fans use against the Rams, which does have a little bit more weight to it, I must admit, is that Stafford is 1-8 in cold weather games. Now, I still don't really know how they're perceiving cold weather games, what really qualifies as a cold weather game, but obviously that record is not great, and it is very hard for an LA warm weather team to go to a cold place like Chicago that's not only cold but has wind and just is a different kind of feel than what you're used to. That is definitely a hard thing, but I would also venture to guess that most of those cold weather games came when Matthew Stafford was in Detroit, which in my opinion, Detroit Matthew Stafford and LA Rams Matthew Stafford is very different, not only with how much he's actually progressed since then and how much he's gotten better, but with the supporting cast he has around him, with an actual legitimate good coaching staff around him. I feel like a lot of those losses, I would have to look into them in each individually to really get my assessment on it, but I don't really think you can put every single one of those losses on Stafford. I mean, it goes back to that playoff argument that people had when Stafford came to the Rams with him being 0-3 in the playoffs. That was thrown out there all the time, but you got to look at the situation he was in. You can't just look at the byproduct of wins and losses, and that's what I think I've seen a lot of Bears fans talk about. I will admit cold weather games is not ideal for a warm weather team. It really isn't, but I don't think you can automatically assume the Bears will win just because it's cold, or that Stafford will struggle just because it's cold. Like, I don't know. I've also seen a lot of people talk about how the Rams have tailed off and haven't had a strong end to the season and have gotten lucky in their wins recently, especially with that Panthers game being most recent. I will admit the Rams haven't played great in the last couple of games. Even in that playoff game, you'd like them to play better, but I don't think that you can just put it up to luck. And if we were to play the luck game, I mean, you've seen how many comebacks the Bears have had this year. They've had like 7 fourth quarter comebacks in incredible fashion, and hats off to them. But that's where I stand, where I'm like, you got to at least give credit to teams. You got to understand where they're doing wrong, but you can't just put it up to luck. And if we were to do that game, I think you could put that more on the Bears than the Rams. So I really do want to look at this game with an unbiased view, but those are some of the big arguments I've seen used against the Rams, and I just wanted to address those, and let me know what you think if I have any validation in these points. Okay, back to the irregularly scheduled program. Thanks for hanging with me there. We are going to get into this Bears offense versus this Rams defense. This Bears offense has been absolutely incredible this year. While it took a while to get started because of everything being overhauled with the players and with coaching more so, it took a little bit to get this thing going, but since it's gotten going, it has looked incredible in Chicago. I think you'd be lying if I told you that a Bears offense would be 9th in points per game, 6th in total offensive yards per game, 12th in passing yards per game, 3rd in rushing yards per game, and 10th in time of possession per game, as well as Caleb Williams nearly being the first 4,000-yard passer in Bears history. Like, this has been an insane season for the Bears. One thing that they do struggle with is slow starts, and I've seen this firsthand again with my dad being a Bears fan. I've seen most Bears games, and a lot of the times they start out slow, they start off rocky, and somehow they find a way to be able to string things together in the second half of the game. And in the fourth quarter in particular, they average more points in the fourth quarter than even some team franchises like the Jets and the Browns. Like, while it hasn't been a complete 4 quarters of football all the time from the Bears, you have to admit the offense has gotten so much better under Ben Johnson with these playmakers, and I just have to admit, as an NFL fan in general, it's been cool to see. I mentioned Caleb Williams nearly having that 4,000 yard passing mark for the first time in Bears history. He's sitting at 3,942 yards on the regular season. He ended with 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, has just been so good for the Bears, and he, like the Bears team in general and the Bears offense, has just gotten better as the year has gone on, has cleaned up some of the things of holding the ball, trying to do hero ball all the time, and has really turned into more of what the Bears were expecting when they drafted him, and I think coaching has really helped him out. But he's got insane skill players around him, no doubt about that. They have built that out, whether it be DeAndre Swift in the backfield, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Rome Odunze. They've got weapons everywhere on this offense, and it's really beginning to pay off for the Bears. I think also an underrated thing that has really helped this Bears team this year has been investing in the offensive line, bringing in guys like Joe Tooney, the guy that used to be on the Rams, Jonah Jackson. You got Drew Dahlman on the offensive line. So really, they have put a lot of resources into this offense to be able to help get them to where they are now. And then you got Ben Johnson leading the way. It's been a really good operation. Again, things to clean up and things where they just, one of the biggest things that they struggle with is starting slow in games, but that hasn't always hurt them. They found a way to come back, and I'm just wondering if this Bears team is able to get more consistent and play 4 quarters of football and then invest in the defense. In years to come, they could be a really scary team to play. But I talked about it earlier, and I think it's something that gets kind of swept under the rug with this Bears offense is they rank 3rd in total offensive yards per game on the ground, and that is something, again, that really doesn't get talked about because everybody wants to talk about Caleb Williams and all the weapons and Ben Johnson, but really the Bears running game has taken massive strides this year, and I think it's one of those things that they haven't been able to lean into as much as they'd like to in games because they're having to do all the coming back or matching scores because their defense can't get as many stops as you'd like. So the run game, when they can actually lean into it, has been effective. Everybody knows on that Black Friday game versus the Eagles, they put up over 200 rushing yards, and Monangai and Swift together have put up 1,800 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground. And again, this offense can be really dangerous if they can lean into that run game, if that's what the game is allowing them to do. It's just some games have gotten away from them with slow starts on offense, and then they're kind of playing keep ups. They got to go through the air. But the Bears running game has been very effective this year, and they haven't had a big running game recently, but that is definitely not something to scoff at with the production that they've been able to get. In the rookie draft pick here, everybody was surprised when they took Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren, but that has paid off. He is looking like one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and there's just certain drives when he just takes over for the Chicago Bears, just simply put, and he did that last week against the Packers. He leads the team with 713 receiving yards and has had such a great year for the Chicago Bears, just really has been everything that they've asked for. Loveland is like a receiver tight end hybrid, and they really use him that way. He's not just a traditional tight end. He can do a lot more than your average tight end, and he's just had an incredible year for the Bears. And of course, right behind him in the wide receiver room, you got a lot of talented guys sitting around the same marks for receiving yards. You even got DJ Moore, Colston Loveland, and Rome Odunze tying for 7 touchdowns. So they use their weapons, and not all of them have been healthy throughout the year, but really it's like an embarrassment of riches on this Bears offense, led by a quarterback who's just getting better and better, living up to that number 1 overall pick pedigree. And then you got Ben Johnson leading the way as the coach. Like, it has really been something fun to watch for Bears fans. I think there's definitely legitimate concerns for Rams fans going into this game. Our secondary has been very up and down and just very volatile this year. They'll have their good games, and other games it just feels like we can't stop a nosebleed. Even against the Panthers, we saw a lot of plays where pressure was getting there right away and there's a guy wide open. So that's something for me as a Rams fan that I'm concerned about in this matchup with their weapons, how many weapons that they have going up against our secondary that's just been very volatile. Heading into some key matchups here, though, for the Rams defense versus Bears offense. I'm going to start off with Jared Verse versus Theo Benedette. This guy is their backup tackle because Ozzie Trapillo actually went down last week. He has been really good at left tackle for them and actually beat out Braxton Jones, who was kind of struggling there. And so with Ozzie Trapillo going down, Theo Benedette coming in, I think this is an opportunity for Jared Verse to be able to have a good day in the playoffs. And a big thing for Jared Verse and the Rams pass rush is not going to be necessarily always getting the sacks, but containing Caleb Williams, because he does a lot of that extension and play extension, and that could really hurt you if you are just going for the sack and you break contain. I mean, Caleb's going to make you pay, so that's going to be big. But Jared Verse in the playoffs versus a backup tackle, I hope that we can get some good results there, because you know the Bears are going to do some chipping and some help in that way, but I do lick my chops when I look at this matchup. My next matchup is going to be Quentin Lake versus Colston Loveland. Loveland, I talked about earlier, has just been breaking onto the scene. It really feels like second half of the year is when he has hit his stride, and think the Bears, again, there's just certain drives when Colston Loveland just takes over, and he has been that dominant, really putting himself in the top tight end conversation already, and Quentin Lake is going to have his hands full. I assume Cam Curl is going to handle Cole Kmet, who's also a really good tight end for them, and I think Quentin Lake is going to draw Colston Loveland, and Loveland can flat out take over a game. I don't think you're going to be able to stop him, but if you can neutralize him with Quentin Lake, Captain Q, in his second game back, that would be huge. My next matchup is going to be Byron Young versus Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright was a top draft pick and has really stepped into that this year, especially has gotten a lot better for the Chicago Bears. Byron Young was not a top draft pick, he was a third round pick, but this year he has really stepped into his own. Had a hot start to the year, got over double-digit sacks, was the Rams' best pass rusher, and this matchup is going to be really fun in the ground game too. Darnell Wright can move guys, so watching this matchup closely on both these edges of Verse and Byron Young. Again, a big thing is not always about getting the sacks, but keeping the contain, setting the right edge. I think that's going to be more of the big thing for these guys. A little bonus one in there, I just want to throw in Kobe Turner versus Jonah Jackson, just because Jonah Jackson spent that year with the Rams. We have familiarity with him, he does with us as well, especially with those practices, so Kobe Turner versus Jonah Jackson will be another fun one too as a bonus. As far as some keys for this Rams defense versus Bears offense, I'm going to actually start with stopping the run to no surprise. This is basically on every single week, but this is going to be important in this game in particular. I talked about the Bears offense being a top 3 rush offense, really not having that much success recently just because they haven't committed to it, but don't let them commit to the run game and really gash you, wear you out, because a team can do that. They are actually ranking pretty high in time of possession. The Bears are as well, and running the ball is one of the ways you can do that, and I think they're going to test this Rams run defense, especially with this temperature going to be hovering around 5 to 15 degrees in this Bears game with wind. I think both teams are going to be looking to run the ball, so if you can stop that, put it on the passing game against this Rams defense, I feel a little bit more confident. Another key is one I've already talked about a little bit. It's contain Caleb Williams. I don't know how many times I've seen him break the pocket and make an exceptional throw. No different than last week against the Packers on that 4th and long, but also times when he just extends and runs with his legs. That's something the Rams defense has struggled with. It's the running quarterbacks, so containing more than anything is, again, I want those sacks, but containing I think is going to be a bigger thing than getting those sacks this week, because Caleb does a lot of his damage outside of the pocket and moving in that way. And my last key for this Rams defense versus the Bears offense is forcing long drives on the Bears. I obviously don't want these to be long drives where the Bears are just running it well. What I mean by this is forcing them to have to pass the ball and forcing them, like, I don't actually mind if the Bears are playing against the Rams and the Rams are doing that bend but don't break style, to force a young offense to be able to go 12 or 14 plays down the field without making a mistake in cold weather against the playoff defense. That's kind of a way that I would like to lose, rather than attacking every play and letting them just be explosive over us. So that's honestly an underrated key in my opinion, because it's hard to have those long methodical drives even for a veteran quarterback, because at some point you're going to want to force the issue, and that may be where the Rams can get their first turnover. So if they can stop the run, force those long drives where Caleb Williams is just having to make the smart decision every time, I feel good about that over the game that we may be able to get a turnover or two. All right, let's get into this Rams offense versus this Bears defense. We know how good this Rams offense has been. There's those conversations about the cold weather and an LA team coming into Soldier Field on the road in a ruckus environment and just all the different things. That is definitely a real thing, and I definitely think that the cold is going to play into it. I don't think what Bears think, where it just inherently means we're going to lose and we're going to struggle terribly. I do think that the cold weather is going to make things a little bit more even than they would be had we been playing in SoFi Stadium. But the Rams have been a top offense in the league this year in a lot of different kinds of weather. They are the #1 scoring offense in the league, and they've had their problems of just kind of cooling off after a hot start. That's again another thing to monitor between these two teams. The Bears usually start cold and then they come on late and win the game. Rams usually start hot and then they cool off and they either let a team back in to win, or they let a team back in and the Rams hold them off. So that's a big storyline for sure. But we know how good this Rams offense is. You got Puka Nacua, you got Devontae Adams, you got Kyron Williams, Matthew Stafford, and Sean McVay. Like, we know how decorated this offense is, but weather is certainly going to play into it, even though the Bears have to deal with the weather as well. I do think it makes things a little bit more even between the teams. That being said, the Rams offense has been a real strength of their team, has been the strength of the team, and that has just been the identity of this team all year long. And for the Bears, the identity for them has been those comebacks, and it has been obviously the way that their offense has been able to perform. Defense has really been a struggle for them all year long. When you just look at these rankings, 23rd in points allowed per game, 29th in total yards allowed per game, 22nd in passing yards allowed per game, 27th 27th in rushing yards allowed per game, 26th in sacks. But the one redeeming quality about this Bears defense is those turnovers. They are first in interceptions, they force fumbles, they get takeaways, kind of similar to the Panthers, where the Panthers defense didn't rank highly in a lot of ways, but the turnovers keep the team in games, and they have that knack to get turnovers. Multiple guys with interceptions. I believe Kevin Byard leads the league in interceptions, and he's on this Bears defense. So that is the one redeeming quality about this defense. I also do like Dennis Allen. I just like the adjustments he's able to make, and he's performed well against some good teams, but I think that this year, a big thing for this Bears defense has been the lack of a front seven and a real pass rush. Their secondary has been able to get turnovers while they've been beat up, and that's definitely certainly affected things, and linebacker core has definitely suffered some injuries there as well. The front seven and the pass rush for the Bears, and just the lack of ability to get a good push even on rundowns, has definitely hurt them. So that's something that I think the Rams can take advantage of here. With a team that can't get good pass rush, with a team that can't really move you in the run game consistently, that does definitely favor the Rams a little bit. But turning over the football, no matter how good you're moving the football, if you turn over the football, even if you're down on their 5-yard line, it doesn't matter how good you're moving the football. So keeping it and staying turnover free is going to be huge, because the Bears defense just does that better than anybody. Tremaine Edmonds leads the team in tackles. He's got 112. He's there at middle linebacker. He's going to be even bigger for the Bears because they just lost TJ Edwards, who is their other linebacker, and they're going to have a backup stepping in there. So Edmonds is going to have to take on more of the load. He has been the guy for tackles this year. Montez Sweat leads this team with 10 sacks, 13 tackles for losses. He definitely, I don't know, Sweat is definitely an impact player, and he makes his plays, and he did last time the Rams and Bears played. It does feel like at times he goes quiet, and then at times makes a splash play. It's not like that consistent just harassment kind of thing off of the edge, but we'll see what he obviously brings in this game against Warren McClendon. A guy that doesn't get talked about enough is a guy who's actually third in sacks for the Bears, and that's Austin Booker. He's only got 4.5 sacks, but anytime I watch a Bears game, he does pop off the screen. He'll have those streaks where he's just making play after play in the run game and the pass game, and sometimes to me it feels like he's the one on their front seven making the plays a little bit more consistently than Sweat at times. That's just the way it feels from an outsider perspective. So Austin Booker is definitely a guy to keep your eye on too. But yeah, interceptions, this team does it better than anybody else. Kevin Byard has 7. That's been a great addition at safety. You got Nashawn Wright, the backup. He's got 5 interceptions, who came off the Vikings practice squad. Another good story there. Tremaine Edmonds at the linebacker position has 4. Those are just the guys leading the way, but a bunch of different guys get turnovers on this defense. Again, the Rams are going to have to stay away from turning over the football, because especially if you have a good lead on this Bears team, you give them turnovers, and that's fuel for them to come back and win games. So you can't do that. Another guy who was added to the roster, I believe it was in November or December, was CJ Gardner-Johnson, the former Eagle. He was banged up last game, so I don't know if he's going to play in this game or not, but he has 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 5 tackles for loss. It does feel like he's just one of those guys that's always around the football. He has a lot of knowledge, and he's been on championship defenses, so certainly a guy to keep an eye on. All right, let's get in some key matchups for this Rams offense versus this Bears defense. I'm going to start off with Kyren Williams versus Tremaine Edmonds, their leading tackler, their guy at middle linebacker, going up against Kyren Williams and an efficient run game for the Los Angeles Rams. Something I hope they lean into in this game with how cold it's going to be with the wind that's going to come. I hope the Rams pack their run game and decide to lean into it and don't get away from it too soon. So watching Kyren, and of course Blake Corum, who gets sprinkled in there as well against Tremaine Edmonds, is a big one for me. I also have AJ Jackson versus a guy who I talked about earlier in Austin Booker. So this is going to be a good matchup, because again, a lot of people don't talk about Austin Booker and what he can do, and they just look at the sack totals, but he actually is a player that I'm a big fan of, and it's just going to be the blindside protection of AJ Jackson, who has been an underrated guy for this Rams team as a whole, has kept Matthew Stafford upright, going up against Austin Booker, who certainly can make his plays for sure. My last matchup is going to be Puka Nacua versus Kyler Gordon. This is going to be a really fun one to watch, because it's hard to guard Puka Nacua in general, but I'm going to be very curious to see how the Bears do it with Kyler Gordon, because Gordon has suffered a lot of injuries this year and is just coming back for them. And he was a guy is really fun to watch, makes a lot of blitz plays, cleans up in the run game, tackles really well, gets turnovers, really good sticky cover guy. They call him Spider-Man over there in Chicago. But he has really been up and down since coming back, and he's still kind of getting worked back in, similar to Quentin Lake in a sense. So this matchup between Puka and Kyler Gordon is going to be really fun, because these are 2 phenomenal players. I just think Kyler is still getting worked back into it a little bit right now. So this could be a little bit of an advantage for a guy who already creates advantages in Puka Nacua. All right, let's get into the Rams offensive keys here versus the Bears defense. I'm going to start off with committing to the run. I don't care if you run it 40 times in this game. And I said this against the Panthers last week. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It's not going to be ideal conditions. And the Bears run defense really does struggle against the run. And so I think the Rams should look to attack this, commit to running the football. That not only limits your turnovers, likelihood of the turnovers actually happening, but also it slows down the game. It limits the possessions that the Bears have. So all in all, I want the Rams to be able to commit to this run game, really take it to them. If the Bears stop it, you can go to the passing game, try to deal with the weather there, but I want them to commit to the run game for sure. Another huge key in this matchup, this could actually define the game here for the Rams and Bears, is resist to commit turnovers, because this defense, they get them in bunches against even really good offenses, and this Rams team just can't give them any life. They gave the Panthers life with the turnover last week, and you just can't give them any life, whether it be fumbling the ball, throwing an interception. That could really sway the game, that could get momentum back and have the Bears game script play out once again. So that's going to be a big one. Don't commit turnovers, otherwise you may be at risk of losing this game. My last key here for the Rams offense is going to be taking shots when they are there. I don't want the Rams to be pass happy and doing all the things that they love to do typically in good weather at home and all of that, but I do think that there are going to be some shots open here against this Bears defense, who has been susceptible to the pass. They let up the 22nd most yards to the passing game, and I think that you can set up those play action shots when the time is right. It is going to be hard to throw in the wind. There's no doubt about that for sure, but I do think that the Rams are going to have their shots when they're there, and just don't fully lean into it and do it all the time. But I think if the shots are there, you got Puka, you got Devontae Adams, you got Tutu Atwell to stretch the field. I think there's definitely going to be some opportunities against this Bears defense that really hasn't been the reason that they're winning games, other than the turnovers they get. When it's all said and done though, what is my score prediction here? With all the weather, with all the familiarity, with the Stafford record and cold weather and all of this kind of stuff that's being played into this game, being on the road, I definitely think weather makes things a little bit more equal. It's an equalizer in this game between two teams, where I think if this game is played at SoFi, the Rams may win by more points. But being that it's going to be in the cold, in Soldier Field, that is going to be rocking once again, I do think that this game is going to be closer. I think it's going to be lower scoring. I say that the Rams end up winning this game 20-14. You know what? Actually, no. I'm going to switch my score prediction. I'm saying the Rams are going to win this game 20-17. That is my final score prediction. Let me know what your score prediction is down below. I think if the Rams just lean into this run game, just resist those turnovers, make sure that you aren't putting the ball in harm's way, and if you can just keep your offense ahead of the chains and play all 4 quarters, don't get off to a hot start and then cool off, because the Bears will come back and beat you that way. I think that the Rams have a good shot in this game. I do think weather, I do think that being on the road is an equalizer, but I don't think it's enough to be able to have the Bears take the win from the Rams. And I think Rams advance to the NFC Championship game. We'll see what ends up happening though. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Hope you guys have a great day. Horns up and God bless.